I think we need more coaching clinics on how to coach, less coaching clinics on the West Coast offense, and this is how you run spread formation. Who cares? Just go on YouTube and watch that stuff. Like, that's easy. How do you get kids to know that you actually care about them? How are you connecting with them? What are you doing intentionally every day that's authentic, that's not fake, that's not phony, that they know you are actually here for them? They're not being used by you. How are you doing that? What are you normalizing? What is normal in your family? Is normal in your family being so busy to get the kid from next thing to the next thing, you never talk about anything, you don't know how they're feeling to like it? So they learn to bury that inward, or either block it out, or go online to talk to someone else because you don't make time for that because you guys are too busy scheduling your life? Then that's normal. And this is interesting for sports coaches. Please remember this. We're probably the last adults on the face of this earth that has a teenager's undivided attention for 2 hours. What are you doing with that 2 hours? What words are you choosing to say that they're actually listening to? Is it just a block, tackle, and catch? Or are you using this opportunity to teach them how to solve a problem, to communicate better, to walk through this with me? You get parents that get shamed now. What do you mean you're not putting your kid in year-round, plug in whatever sport you want, extra private coaching? Because I want my child to be a child and do diverse things and have fun. Well, you don't really care about their development. Like, you get this unbelievable shaming on people where this is what you have to do. And I'm asking, for what? Like, what are you trying to do with your child here?
As a professional football player, Angus Reid hoisted the Grey Cup on 2 separate occasions with his hometown BC Lions. And as proud as he is of those accomplishments, his definition of winning may actually surprise you. Hey there, I'm Scott Rentoul, the host of Better Sports Parents, a podcast designed to help you, me, and everyone else out there become exactly that, a better sports parent. We ask our kids to get better when they go to youth sports, and we can do the same as parents. And we do that by interviewing world-class performers from across the sports landscape, and Angus Reid certainly qualifies in that regard. He played 13 seasons in the Canadian Football League as a starting center, mostly with his hometown BC Lions, and as I mentioned earlier, won a couple of championships in the process. Angus is now a high school football coach in Vernon, BC, and he's also a flag football coach at the U10 level. In addition to that, he's a father of 3, he's a husband, he's a noted keynote speaker, and he's also an author 2 times over. His most recent book, Teenager, A Story About Finding Your Way, has just hit shelves recently and can certainly help you and your children in their own journey. Angus is extremely passionate about helping shape today's youth, and you'll find out why right here on Better Sports Parents. First of all, Angus, for a couple of guys who used to see each other almost every day for a long time, it's been a minute. How are you doing? And thank you very much for doing this.
Well, first off, thanks for having me on, Scott. And yes, it's been too long. Life is good. We left the coast right during COVID, 2021, came to the Okanagan. My oldest was going to start kindergarten, and we made a decision to sort of have a little more space and time, and it's wonderful. It gives me time to coach high school football, stuff we'll talk about. But yeah, I don't get to the coast enough now to see old friends as much as I should.
Just before we dig into all of this, former professional football player from the big city goes to small town to coach high school football. Are you sure you're not in a Hallmark movie?
Yeah, well, I'd like to be. Hey, who doesn't love Hallmark movies?
Well, my wife will say absolutely nobody, but that's a story for a different day. I want to start here because there's so many things for us to get into, but really the foundation of this podcast is youth sports and parenting around youth sports. When you look at the youth sports landscape today, compared to where it was when you were growing up and what you've seen over the course of your lifetime, where are we and what do you see?
Uh, yeah, I'll start with the concerning side of it for me. Well, okay, on the actual side, I mean, we're seeing talent like we've never seen before. I mean, we see development, shall we say, of our youth on levels that you and I have never seen. We always had those guys that we grew up with that were phenomenal athletes, but you're seeing players perform at levels that I couldn't imagine teenagers being able to do when we were kids. But on the flip side, the worrisome side that I see is the business model behind it, and the privatization and the businessification, if that's not even a word, of youth sports, where you and I played. High school sports were pretty prominent There was always club sport, but high school sport was, you went to school and you participated in the sports, and coaches and teachers were there to support you, and it was all voluntary, but there was never a shortage of outlets for us. And even your club sports, which were mostly probably soccer, baseball, maybe hockey, weren't they weren't overly businessized. They were just clubs you belonged to, and some were very serious, and coaches gave a lot of time. But now I'm seeing uh, the financial side of it and the whole business model, and it's scary to me to see high school sports dying. They're dying, and everything's moving to club, which to me just means private, it's becoming a year-end investment. That if you don't cut the check, you're left out, and that's that part of it. I'm very It worries me. It actually bothers me, if I'm being honest.
Yeah, I agree. And many people have said, and you just said this as well, that they see that currently as the biggest issue in youth sports today. Because on one side of that privatization and club model, there's never been more opportunity. Like there have never been more places you can go. But at the same time, it cuts the other side because it's exclusionary, because of time constraints, because of costs for family, and sometimes literally geographical constraints as well. Can we put the genie back in the bottle, or how do we alter the model so that it is more inclusive?
Well, I think everything is predicated on what you deem success to be. Everybody wants to win, but Scott, what does winning mean? And kids only know what they're presented with, and then they chase it, right? And they either pursue being praised by their parents or winning based on the definition that they understand it to be. And I think it always has come down to kids are never been the problem. It's adults that have all. I mean, it's always adults being the problem because we create the framework and we fan the flame, and they just do what they think is right. And we congratulate them and we praise them and we make them celebrities when they're teenagers. And who doesn't want that? So I think it's always up to us to create the definition of what winning means, what success is, what are we trying to do here? But the reality is you can't just use words. You actually have to back that with celebrating that, or else they know it's fluff, and they know at the end of the day who gets paid. And they think winning means getting paid and getting a million followers online, and having that because we've deemed that to be winning in our society. And so that's a bigger conversation than just youth sports. But at the end of the day, if that's still deeming success on the sports avenue now, you're going to have people that are going to chase more to do it, pay more to have better coaches, 24-hour a day service for it, because that's winning in their world. And until you change that on a high level, I don't know how you can go back, because everything less is going to seem like not really caring. Like that's what I look at. Like, you get parents that get shamed now. What do you mean you're not putting your kid in year round, plug in whatever sport you want, extra private coaching? Because I want my child to be a child and do diverse things and have fun. Well, you don't really care about their development. Like, you get this unbelievable shaming on people where this is what you have to do. And I'm asking, for what? Like, what are you trying to do with your child here? What is winning for your own child, for real? And I think you have to have those conversations with adults and pin that down first. And then you have to backtrack. Well, what actions are you doing? Does this equate what you really want for your child? And you can never forget that. What is the end goal for our children here? What is the real end goal? And then you audit your daily actions, going, is this feeding that, or is this something completely different? Why are we doing all this? Not easy.
I do believe that when parents first put their children in sport, that they have that end product in mind. We want them to get all of the good things out of sport that we talk about: leadership and discipline and resilience and healthy habits. And it gets confused very quickly. I get the sense that you don't consider winning getting to a professional team or having a professional career or making money through sport. What do you consider winning?
I think consider winning when we're talking youth sports. And I coach high school football, so I'm around teenagers, and I coach flag, so I'm around 7, 8-year-olds also. And my boy's in hockey now, so I'm already entering a world that I don't have no knowledge of. He's a 7-year-old playing hockey. I consider winning that when they're done this sport, they're prepared to handle life with all the attributes needed, where they can socialize properly with many people. They can handle various stressors and respond without breaking. They can take input and feedback and use it appropriately without getting defensive and breaking down because someone is saying something they could get better with. They can look at the unknown and not be scared because they've navigated unknowns before, which I think that's a problem that's happening in youth sports. We're not letting kids figure out anything anymore. Everything's coached, everything. So that's another problem. So you remove the private coach, they don't know what to do. But that's a whole conversation. I want my kids to realize life doesn't have any guarantees. There's uncertainty out there. but you're able to work with people to solve problems in front of you. You can put in long hours when you have to, but you also know that that isn't the badge of honor. You do what's required without doing more to prove anything other than just getting done what you want to get done, working together, and realizing I can do this. I mean, that's what I always say, and I wrote it in my book. I think one of the fundamental things our kids need to know is you can do this. You can do this. And I want my kids to leave going, I can do things now because sports showed me that I didn't think I could do that. And I learned I could. So I can transfer that now to all the uncertainties and stressors of life that it's going to be hard. I don't know how I'm going to do it, but I know we can sit down and figure things out and work together with people and we can find answers.
We're going to come back to youth sport here, but I want to touch on your book because you brought it up. I mentioned it in the intro. It's the second book that you've authored, and this latest one is directed in a little different way. This one is called Teenager. Why did you feel compelled to write this book, Angus?
Well, I have three young boys now. So I have a 10-year-old, a 7-year-old, and an 11-month-old. I also coach high school football. So I'm kind of back in that youth world. And throughout my years playing pro ball, we did a lot of school speaking, and I spent a long time speaking at high schools and junior highs, and I still do. I don't do it as much, and I've seen so much change in this world, but the needs of our teens haven't. It's just the noise has changed. What they think matter has changed, but what really matters never changes. We're still humans. We still need the same things, and as I'm getting older, I'm realizing I can't be speaking at schools as much as I used to. So I wanted to sort of find a way to package all the lessons and stories that I've ever shared that I thought resonate, that have value to our youth. How do I put that in a place where it's scalable without me having to travel the whole world anymore? And maybe one day I have a document that my boys will read because it might be cooler reading it third person than hearing it from dad. But I wanted to have all the messaging I've always done in a place that I can make accessible to more people than I could ever get in front of.
Well, that makes a lot of sense. And I certainly don't want to spoil the book for those who can pick it up and read it, and makes a great gift at this time of the year as well. But what is the general path that you're trying to walk people through?
The big thing that I talk about is you have to want to become somebody in this world. And see, I talk about wanting a lot, but the problem is this world has moved to wanting things. We want things. We want 1 million followers, we want $1 million, we want a huge house, we want to play pro basketball. And those are all just things that come and go. You want to become somebody. Like we spoke about earlier, youth sports. What is the end goal? You want to become somebody, high agency person, right? You want to be someone that can do things. And to me, my belief, and I know the big worry about the world is where's it headed? What careers will I ever get? AI is destroying everything. Look, look at the course of history. We've always had terrifying things go. Now, what are we going to do? We always figure that out. Okay, so to me, it's you got to want to do something, and then you just got to choose an outlet now. It'll probably change in 5 years. You got to choose, and you got to learn to do. You got to learn to commit to something, and to help that mold you into a better person, and that teaches you that resilience, that problem solving, probably working together with others. I chose football. The book has football stories. That's why it could be anything, but you got to dive into something and say, I'm going to do this as an outlet to find out who I really am. So you want to pick something that excites you enough that you're going to have, energy to it, but then you actually dive into something and commit. You don't half it. You don't hedge it. You don't do 5 things at once. Do something. Like go all out and do something and see how good you can get at it. And then you can extrapolate those to other things. And once you learn, wow, I had no idea I could ever pull that off. Then I think you're armed with that knowledge. What else could I do that I never thought's possible? And you start building. I could be wrong here. I do. I work with teenagers a lot, and I think one of the biggest things we're seeing with our youth is false confidence. There's a lot of bravado because you got to play the role now. You can't show it, right? Which I think has a lot of mental health issues because you're so scared of looking like you don't know what's going on, so you fake it, or you just completely hide away from everything. And I think we need to build real courage and real confidence, and that can only come through action. So you got to start doing stuff. Be a doer and hang out with people that actually try things, tinker, experiment, get out there and find out how good you can become. Pick an outlet. And that outlet doesn't have to be your career choice because careers are going to change now faster than ever. But you got to do something and get going. And then that'll lead to something else. And that'll open more doors and make more friends. And so, the message in the book is about commit to finding out how good you want to be as an individual. Find something that's available to you now and get busy doing it. That's momentum creating. So many kids get stuck in waiting for what should I do? Who knows what you should do? But do something now, and that'll start getting going. And that'll open more doors. I mean, I think, and I know we come back to youth sports. Probably some of the greatest things youth sports will do is create relationships that you'll end up doing business with when you're older. because you started here, which means you met people, which means you went to places, got exposed to new ideas. 20 years later, you look back and go, those are the guys I played youth sports with that we're running now businesses together because you did something which allowed you to do more things, which opens the door and keeps expanding you as an individual.
Well, one of the things that you mentioned is that kids haven't changed. I agree with that wholeheartedly. I think we as the adults have changed the environment, but kids fundamentally have not changed. And one of the things you and I heard all the time growing up was, you're a kid, enjoy it. It's the best time of your life. But in saying that, there's no acknowledgement that it's difficult. And it is
Yeah,
difficult being a kid.
very
It's
hard.
certainly difficult being a teenager. And I think the fact that you acknowledge that with this book and the vulnerability you show in this book of saying it's not easy and it was hard for me to can resonate with a lot of people. What's the feedback been from teenagers who've consumed this?
Even when I used to speak, people go, "Oh, you played 13 years pro. You don't understand how hard." I'm like, "Look, you read the book." I came out in football grade. I quit one weekend. It was too hard for me. I was a chubby kid that was awkward and weird, and I quit. And I thought quitting would remove struggle. You learn quickly. Quitting's easy. It doesn't make life any easier though. And it was really hard. I went through grade 8, grade 9, grade 10. I didn't play any sports. I didn't have any friends. And you keep avoiding challenge, thinking that's going to make your life easier. You got to get stronger, right? And I think that's something we need to acknowledge. Life is hard. It's not easy, but our best bet is to get better. We can't hope it's going to get easier, and we can't, as adults, become those helicopter parents that try to make it easier. We got to make our kids stronger, and we don't do it by yelling at them and telling them to toughen up. We nudge them into situations that is just beyond their comfort zone, and then you acknowledge the second they did something they didn't think they could do, and they went, "Wow," and you show them that again. "Well, you see what you just did there? You couldn't do that yesterday." They're like, "You're right." And we keep nudging them along, and then they slowly build that courage to face life. And again, we gotta remind them, it is never gonna get easier. We just have to keep getting better. And that's not linear. And it's not gonna go straight up. You're gonna have hard days, and it's gonna go backwards, but the goal is to just keep going. And I write about this book a lot, and you got to build relationships with friends that are wanting to do that with you, so you can shoulder the load together. Because you're having a bad day, I can pick you up. Tomorrow, I have the bad day, you pick me up, and we just keep going. And it's so much more fun facing life with like minded peers. And those, Scotty, I mean, we played football. Greatest relationships we had are the guys you went through training camps with and early morning workouts because it was really hard. And we did it with others, and we all didn't know if we could pull through it, but we did. And so you have this bond too, and you also have the acknowledgement that we didn't think we'd do that, but we did it. We did it together. And I think that's missing a lot in this world where so much is done online and so much is done to showcase the actual really doing it. It comes back to you sports again. The power of it is, I know I don't want to get too sidetracked here, but we went through life a lot where there's a lot of initiations and hazings, and they want to toughen people up through making life miserable. That's what we did, right? I think you can go the other way. And I think you can bond people over doing something that's very hard, but it's very positive. I know football, so I can speak on that sport. It's a hard sport. You can try to make it easier, or you can just try to acknowledge that and say, together, we're gonna do this. And we're gonna get through these hard days and practices. And we're not gonna yell at you and tell you you're trash. We're gonna help you face the difficulty together. And you're gonna come to the other end going, wow, I didn't think I could ever do that. And you said, yeah, but you did. So tomorrow when it gets hard again, you know what you got now. And I think we strengthen people by putting them in the hard, but be there with them. Don't just throw them out there and yell at them that they're not tough enough. That's the old way, and I don't think it's lazy, shall we say.
Yeah, I don't subscribe to it either. And you and I endured that, and many others who are watching or listening to this endured it, and they think that's the pathway. I hope that most people realize that's not the correct way to do it. It's certainly not the most positive way to do it. And really, it's a shift in mindset because that mindset is we're going to make it as tough as possible to see if you will get through it, as opposed to we think you're strong enough. We welcome you into our environment because we think you can be a part of this and make us stronger together. It strikes me when you describe how you weren't playing sports in the early part of high school, and then you found it that if you were in the Instagram age, people would have only seen what happened in grade 11 and 12, would only have seen that great first year at Simon Fraser University, and they wouldn't have seen some of the other things. That's not a comment on you. It's just a comment on where social media is at. So let's go back to when you did find the courage. Who was it that gave you the nudge you needed to get involved in sport?
Look, my story is a little different than probably most because I have 4 older brothers, and so I grew up in a sports family. And I think part of that was my insecurity that my brothers were really good. So I never thought I could be like them. So I shied away from it. I didn't have that confidence because they were good. So I could never be. So I was around sports. I grew up as a gym rat as a little kid. And on the one hand, it made it hard for me because I looked up to my brothers and I could never be like them. But I speak about it in the book. Like, I went to Vancouver College and we had a good sports program when I was growing up there. And as a 10th grader, I don't know why I did this because I didn't go to sports games in grade 8 and 9 or 10 as a kid, but I went and watched the finals. We were in the football finals and we won. And I was in the crowd. And it was just a moment of like, it just sort of hit me going, this is awesome. And that's, but that wouldn't happen if I sat at home. Like, I got inspired. I got inspired in that moment. And sometimes you just need 5 seconds of courage when you're inspired to just take that leap. And I remember the next day at school, or I told my parents, I go, I want to play football. And it blew their mind. Like I would, and then you got to fan that flame now because that'll die quick, right? And so you know, Coach Delmonte had a team meeting quickly for the next season's team already, and I showed up, and I think it blew his mind. Like, what's Reid doing here? And I just dove, and because I had courage for that moment, okay, and I took advantage of it because everybody has great ideas at night, and they sleep in the next day and they forget about it. You got to take action now, and I did it. And then it was like, what did I get myself back into? But I'm in this now, and my parents, just try to be supportive and I can't say what the secret sauce is to not quit again. I walked you through the book. Then I started realizing the friends I needed to find and the people I need to stay around and the mentors I need to find it. I slowly pieced it together, but I had enough inspiration in that moment that carried me long enough to get momentum going. And momentum is a huge thing, Scotty. Like, momentum is massive. And again, I was lucky enough to have coaches at that, even in the 90s, that were good coaches. They coached really good football, but they weren't old school, like, "You toughen up." They were good. They were encouraging, they were demanding, never demeaning, and all that good stuff, right? So, I held it long enough till I started finding friend groups, until I had a little bit of success that was showcased to me to realize, maybe I could do okay here, and then you just start stacking things, right? And I think that's something that's been universal. There's a lot of luck that goes in that, but look, I wouldn't have been lucky if I didn't show up, and I couldn't have got lucky if I didn't go to that meeting. I went to that game. I could have not gone. I got inspired and I did something with that moment of inspiration. And, I think every kid deep down, and I say this all the time, even the ones that are really feeling down the dumps, everybody wants to do something with their life. Find so many people, but they might not say it. They might not even say it to themselves because they just don't have the courage anymore. But deep down, there's no one says, I don't want to do one thing with my life. If they do, but it might be buried. It might be beat down so hard. And so we have to be inspired again. We have to have reason and that's the other downside of our social media. It's a comparison world now. Everyone's better than you. Why don't we lift each other up and remind each other you can do anything you're willing to challenge yourself on. And here's the other thing you said, Scott, about coaches, because now I coach. It's not a you, it's a we, and I'm here to help you. Like let's do this together. I talk about high school coaching now. It is not. I don't coach them. We go through this journey together. We're in this together. Now, you got to go do it on game day, but I'm here the whole time with you through this. It's not like you go run those extra drills. We are going to go get this done. We're going to work today, and I learn from them just as much as they learn from me because we have conversations. We're in this together.
You mentioned the way that you and I went through football and other sports when growing up. It was old school. There was a lot of yelling. There was intimidation. That's not the most productive way. I don't think you coach that way. It's certainly not a way that I would endorse either. There is a side of coaching, especially in a sport like football, where you do need to be firm. How do you balance being firm with also being positive and supportive?
That's a really good point. And I learned that again until 5 years ago when I moved to Vernon. I had only just sort of helped out at coaching clinics. I hadn't coached at high school level. So when I came back, and it was right after COVID, which was really weird. So there was no football the year before. So we had kids that like hadn't seen anything but their eyelids because they had masks on. And so we had to get them to be comfortable with each other, let alone adults talking, close up huddle, and all that weird stuff. But I learned quickly, to your point, I couldn't be demanding of them till they knew I actually cared about them. And so some people say, "Dang, so you're a little soft on these guys." I said, "I am at first because I want them. I don't want them to quit. I want them to stick around, and I want them to stick around long enough to go. I like listening to you, and to really believe I'm not going to throw you under the bus. I'm going to throw myself under the bus because here's the thing about coaching: any mistake you make, that's a failure on my behalf as a coach. Unless you're intentionally screwing up, if you're trying hard, I haven't coached you well enough. So I was really, really building this rapport that I got your back for real. I am never." going to cuss you out in front of the team for a mistake because I haven't coached you well enough yet. That's on me. So I would ask questions so I could learn, so I could improve my mechanisms. And then you get to this place with some of these kids, and I did it all the time, Scott. I never forget my first year. We brought up Mark Johnson, who plays down at Eastern Washington now, and I really built good rapport with him. I think all these kids I did, but I would ask these guys at the end of every year, at kind of midway through the season, end of the season, what could I do to coach you better? What would help? So I know personally, individually. And Mark said, Coach, you got to coach me harder now. Okay, that's what you want, then I can do this. Because you're a high school athlete. I'm not paying you. I'm here to make sure your experience is good. I'm going to hold you accountable to standards that we have. But at the end of the day, I'm not coaching a pro athlete here. But you want it? Then I'll bring it. Let's go. And we have team standards and expectations of how you behave at practice but on the individual coaching level, I would dive down with these guys. So, what do you want to get out of this experience? So I can know best to support that. And some kids want to play college ball, some kids want to play basketball. Scott, I coach them differently. I coach every individual based on what they're trying to get out of this, so I can support their goals. And it's worked well for me. And I am super demanding on them based on what they're trying to get out of this. And I hold them accountable to what they want. And we have ongoing conversations and how are we doing with this? And some guys want more, and some guys, they just want to play high school ball. Okay, we have our standards and we expect you to behave this way, but I'm not coaching minute details of anything, but you want it, no problem. I'm here to support whatever you're trying to get out of this. That's my job. And what's really cool, Scott, and again, I don't want to go off on a tangent on this, but because I'm just volunteering my time, I don't have to justify it to their parents why they're not getting why isn't my kid getting this? We're playing high school sports here. I'm just helping your kid have. Of course, we're trying to win games, but that's not the end goal. It's a nice measurement. Of course, we're going to pursue that because it's a tangible thing that these kids need to see they're doing. But like Coach Smith, our head coach, right before the finals, we've been in the finals the last 3 years. His speech before we go on the field is, guys, just remember, win or lose, parents are still going to love you. We're going to still love you guys. Nothing's going to change. It's okay. Like, bring everything you got. We expect, but the outcome will not dictate who you are.
I agree with that 100%. And something you brought up there is such a great point for those parents and coaches out there who are watching or listening to this right now. And it's asking the kids what they want out of this. And it's something that was never done in our day. It wasn't even a thought in our minds to ask ourselves or that anyone would ever ask us. But it's amazing what happens. I'm helping coach a grade 7 girls elementary school basketball team right now. And I literally had that with them this week. And I said, "Hey, what could have made this practice more fun for you?" And I was shocked at some of the feedback that came back. But if we don't ask, we'll never listen. I had one child say, "I think we need to work on defense more because some of the teams we're going to play, they are very direct and we need to." You want to work on defense instead of just shooting the ball? Okay, we can do that. But as a coach, I would never have thought that because I know what the fun part of basketball is. It's scoring baskets, it's making the pass.
We know, we know, we
Of course,
know.
it's amazing what happens when you involve the kids in the process and show them that you're invested in them as people and in what they care about, as opposed to what you assume they care about, isn't it?
And I think that's the big switch where you look at coaches where, I say this to the kids all the time. Coaches should never use players. Players should be using the coaches. I tell them all the time, use me. I'm a resource. I'm not trying to use you to win a championship. I don't need to win a high school football championship. You guys use me to achieve your goals. And whether that's what you want or you want to go to college sports, or you just want to play high school sports, use me as everything I can get from me to help that. That's what I'm volunteering for. Don't use players. And I think whether they did it intentionally or not, the old way was, this is my team as a coach, and you're here to do what you're told. And we did what we were told. And we bonded together, and coach might have been mean or not, but it was his program. And it's youth sports. We're here to serve the players. Okay, if you're here to serve somebody, look, you're in the service industry. You ask them what they want. I don't know a server in the world that doesn't ask what you want. They just he'll give you something. Not a very good server, right? So if you're in the service industry, you better start with saying, what do they want? And then you can nudge and have conversations and add insights because they might not be totally clear. Look no different than the restaurant. I might not really know. I'm looking for a steak. Can we talk about that? And you help me discuss. We have conversations with kids. And as you said, Scott, actually listen to what they're saying and go, I've learned a lot from kids going, I never even thought about that before. That's pretty good. Yeah, let's look. I'm just here to help you guys do great. I'm not here so you guys can make me look great. I don't care, right? And that's again the beauty of volunteer coaching. For the most part, you're probably doing it for a better reason than if this is how I pay my bills. Because if this is how I pay my bills, I have to show tangible success that the parents think is important, or at least they can measure me on because of they're cutting checks. So I have to do this. And that to me has ruined the whole thing behind what we're trying to do here. And so I stay away from that. There's no money in anything I'm going to do to help sports, or I won't do it because this is not a job. I think to your point, I'm sure you'd agree with me. It's our duty because there was grown men that volunteer their time for us. So what a slap in the face. And I'll say this openly. People our age that make a living charging youth to coach them when if they had coached when they were young, and you know they did, that did it out of the goodness of their heart, that is the most disrespectful slap in the face. Say, thank you for teaching me everything I learned. Now I'm going to charge the next generation for what you taught me for free. I I struggle with that. I struggle with that.
I can understand why. And I want to bring parents into this conversation because coaches often are parents. I know in your case, you're not coaching your kids at high school yet, but you're coaching them in flag football. A lot of times these are volunteers, but there are a lot of parents who don't have the time or energy or perhaps the knowledge base to do that. I do think those parents should, but often don't, ask their kids that same question, what they want to get out of the sport. How else can we encourage parents to be properly invested in what their children want through sport?
Yeah, well, it comes down to what is our job as parents, right? It's not to tell our kids what to do with their life. It's no different than a sports team. We have standards and we have expectations of how you are as a human being. Okay. But beyond that, the outlets you're going to choose. Like people always say to me, oh, your boys are gonna be football players. Like, I have no idea what they're gonna do. That's what I did. I'm not trying to build little mini robots of me. Like my oldest is not interested in sports at all. He likes science and space, and I think it's wonderful. I actually hope they want to do something totally different, so I get a real cool exposure to watch things I don't know. But listen, it's going to be their choice, and I have the expectations of how you do things in life. To me, my big message when I speak to youth and adults is to what you do isn't who you are, how you do it is. But we hang on those titles, right? I'm a football player. No, you're just a guy that plays football. Like you're a good person that works hard, that brings a lot to the table. You can do that anywhere. When you go home, it doesn't end. And that's, Scotty, that's a bigger conversation, but that's a lot of the problem with mental health. I think when athletes, when they retire, that's their identity. Their whole life, their parents have been proud of them because they won games. What happens when you can't win a game anymore? I'll tell parents this right now. Be very careful taking your kids out for ice cream when they win and not when they lose. They're very smart. They equate to what matters to mom and dad as we win. What happens when I can't win anymore? You don't get ice cream. Mom and dad don't love me anymore. You don't have to say it. They feel things. Right? You take them out because you're proud of how they played. You better articulate that because that's controllable. I can do that all the time. That's what I'm proud of you for. Ah, we won, we lost. Of course, we're going to cheer when you win, but that's not what we're going to showcase our love for. But we got to be very careful on this, right? And back to the business side of sport, it's really hard when you have people now pressuring parents. You want the best for your kids, right? Well, we need year-round training. And I can go off all kinds of reasons why those are bad ideas, but you have mom and dad that you said they start out wanting the best for their kids, but they get messaging now from people that have an agenda. And of course, the agenda is to work with them, to work with them. This is youth sports, to work with them. And now everything has changed in that world. So, you know, on my personal mission, like now that I started posting stuff on Instagram when we do our O-line blocking drills, I get messages from all kinds of people now, right? Coach, can we hire you to do this? I said, I don't work for fee. I coach high school football. I just showing you guys what we do. You want to drive to Vernon one day, come work out with us. Like, I don't charge. I'm just helping out, but I'm not for hire because that would then change everything. And I'm just a coach trying to help kids. And all I'm doing is passing on stuff I've learned. So, I, again, I think you're right, Scott. You hit enough. Our parents need to be reminded what really matters and never forget this because you're going to get a lot of noise coming at you. You're going to believe people because they're very good at telling you and they're going to showcase why. And we got this player to this level. Really? Did you? But are they that athletic? But true. Is that the goal here? At what cost? What are we doing here? Like you and I know the best athletes in the world that become pros, they're going to become pros for the most part. I don't want adults taking too much credit for making unbelievable athletes. Okay. Mom and dad did most of that work. Now, I will say on the one hand, like my middle boy, he's in hockey right now because at 7, it's probably the first real competitive team sport in Vernon. And he just wants to be on a team. He loves to win. So hockey's sort of the easiest outlet. He's not a soccer kid. So that's just life. And there's one of the dads there that he can get them extra ice time in the mornings. It's free. He's able to get it. And we do, and people are like, oh, you're already going down that road. I said, listen, my kid's going to watch, he's going to sit around and watch TV otherwise. He's kind of lazy unless he was team people. This is a healthy outlet for him. It's available. They're not even coaching. They're just, it's like going to basketball court. To me, if you're able to provide outlets for them to play more, and that's better than what they might be doing outside, that's pretty good. But if you're doing it to monetize it, say they have to do this or they're not going to be on the team, that's bad. That's really bad.
Yeah, I agree with you. And it seems to me you mentioned that your son plays hockey, but also involved in flag football. Your oldest son's involved in activities that have nothing to do with sport as well. It strikes me that you're a big believer in multi-sport, not year-round specialization. What benefits do you believe that children receive from multi-sport that might not even have to do with physical activity?
Yeah, like I won't even go down to the physical side because I'm sure you can get sports biomechanic guys and they're going to tell you that throwing year round as a pitcher is probably not good for a 12-year-old shoulder and skating is probably not good for the ACL when you're pushing inwards and like they can tell you all that stuff. Okay. I'm going to give you one that I think doesn't get noted till later in life. It's the ability to have diverse relationships with different kinds of people and be able to blend in with different people. You and I know. You got football friends. If the only thing you ever do is football and you have football friends, you got football jokes, football humor, football buddies, which is good, but you can't talk to anybody else. Same with hockey, same with baseball. If you lived in a little bubble your whole world, you hide there and you go to the bar with them again and again for the rest of your life. It's great to have those kind of friends. But if you played 5 different sports, you get in sales or business or you can talk to anybody. You are very comfortable in any environment because baseball is very different than track and field and hockey is very different than football. And not that you have to play them all, but the more you can do that varied, I think as a general healthy personality, you have multiple types of friends. And you can navigate that relationship. Again, there's all the other benefits of not overloading the system. But I think from a relationship standpoint, you're forced to have a lot of friends or at least interact with a lot of people, but they're all different kinds of people because I guarantee you track humor is different than hockey humor. And you end up becoming more well-rounded in terms of functioning in a diverse environments. And our world is becoming more diverse than ever anymore. And if you can only live in this little world that you know how to navigate, you're in for a tough go. You're in for a very tough go.
A lot of parents learn parenting intentionally or unintentionally from the parents that they had. I've had the fortune of meeting your parents. I can rarely say that about somebody that I've talked to on this program, but I have met your parents and I know how supportive they are of you. But just the way you detailed your youth sports experience, they obviously weren't high pressure parents
No,
because they weren't forcing you into football in grade 8 just because your older siblings had played, for example. How did they demonstrate an approach to sports that obviously was very healthy for you?
model. Everything's modeling. Everything else is nonsense, right? Dad tells you to do something, you look at them, say, you're not doing it. And dad tells you eat healthy, he's not eating healthy. It's all nonsense, right? Modeling's everything. It's subtly the strongest communication you can give to somebody because how you live, that speaks so much louder than what you say, right? So and I said this before too, my parents never forced you to do just to do anything. But one thing I will say, my brothers were probably all just as heavy influences as my parents because my mom had 4 at the age of 3, and then it was 6 years to me and 6 years to my sister, so they were quite a bit my older brothers, so they were big models for me too, like, you're watching them do stuff, and my parents had expectations that, "We're not gonna tell you what to do, but when you do things, you're gonna give your best. You wanna play soccer, you wanna play fine, but you're not gonna half things," and the Reid family was big on no sick days, so, like, you commit, doesn't matter, you're going to practice today, like, so we learned early. So I was young enough to realize that was normal. I didn't think that was weird. So I can say very powerfully, if your modeling is consistent with how you live your life and the expectations you have on them, if it's consistent, then it's normal. Then it's not much of an ask because they don't know anything different. And so it's not do this, do that. They just fall in place with how we operate at home. Of course, we talk at family dinners. Why wouldn't we? And I had friends that would come over and go, you guys are crazy. You talk all the time. What do you do? I didn't think it was weird. It was normal. We talked about problems. We supported each other. We made fun of each other. We high fived each other. It never stopped. So to me, to communicate with people, I didn't know anything different. So I think it's what are you normalizing? What is normal in your family? Is normal in your family being so busy to get the kid from next thing to the next thing, you never talk about anything? You don't know how they're feeling to like it? So they learn to bury that inward or either block it out or go online to talk to someone else because you don't make time for that because you guys are too busy scheduling your life, then that's normal, right? And so to me, I think a lot of it is there's no right answer, but what are you making normal to them? And if it's normal from the get go, it's not that big of a deal to work your butt off. What are you supposed to do? It's not that big of a deal to bring everything you have. It's not that big of a deal to talk every day about issues and problems at school. What do you mean you don't? Because it was normalized. And I did a TED talk a couple of years ago on trust, and I compared the football huddle to the family dinner, and how it's that daily check in where there's honesty, communication, feedback, support, help, problem solving. But the problem, I know parents will have kids at 15, 16 going, "Oh, I got no relationship with my kid because you haven't been doing anything." You can't be like, "Why don't we sit down and talk?" Why aren't you always doing that? Like, you can't just do it when there's a problem. You can't just all of a sudden have a no huddle offense that huddle will solve a problem. They don't know how to talk to each other. You either always do it or you don't, right? So I think my parents were very big on, we're not going to tell you, you get to pick your life, but you are going to function in a certain way. You're going to bring your best. You're going to show up. You're going to fulfill commitments, try your hardest, and be a good teammate. And all the characters we talk about. And they did very good at not just modeling that, but what gets rewarded gets repeated. That's what they would be proud of us for. They were very, very articulate about what they're proud about after games. And to me, that was always important. I try to do the best for my son. And I'll share with you, Scotty, something I learned. I'll pass it on to parents. I think it's really changed my viewpoint on how I message to kids and my boys now. I was speaking at an event a couple years ago, and we had Brett Wilson, one of the Dragons Dens, was there, and he was speaking before me. And he's big on making sure you really understand the words you're using. Really be careful. And he challenged me. He goes, "Angus, how often do you tell your boys or the kids you coach you're proud of them?" I said, "More than you can imagine. I never stop." He said, "Be careful about that." I'm like, "What are you talking about?" He goes, "Watch your boys. You're very influential to the kids you coach too. They do something and they look to you to see if you're proud of them. And you're proud of them, then they feel good." He goes, "Be very careful now. They need validation from someone they look up to before they feel good about what they've done. And that's going to carry forth now. Did they get likes on their picture? Then it's good. Did the teacher say they did well? Then they did well." And I'm going to tell you something. What I've changed now is he changed the phrase to this, and I do it with my boys now. Once they've done something that you think is pretty impressive, and they're looking to you, and just like a player after play, they look to coach. And you run over and go, "You see what you just did right there? You need to be very proud of yourself. You should be very proud of yourself. You understand me? Look, I'm always going to be proud of you. You don't need to worry about that. You understand why, though. You do not need the world to tell you you've done good. You need to know it, and you need to be good about it." And then when they say, "Yeah, do you really know why?" "Yeah, Dad, because I did that." "Good. You got to learn to be proud of yourself. I will always be proud of you. You do not have to worry about that." And same with the players. Like, I will have your back. And this is another interesting thing I've done, Scott. Remember back in the day when we'd grow up, we'd play sports and we'd wait to get graded by our coaches to see if you played well or not. You're kind of hoping you get a good grade. So with these high school kids now, same thing, right? It's all on huddle and film. You get the film right away. Everyone wants to know how they played. How did you think you played? I'm not giving you my thoughts first. What do you think? How did you feel about your performance? "Well, coach, well, how did I do out there?" You did it. What do you think about what you did? Don't worry what I say right now. We'll correct issues. And how do you feel about it? And that's awkward for kids. They're waiting to see the teacher said they did well. Their buddies say they're cool. Online says that picture was awesome. What do you say? They don't know. They're not used to, you know, being okay with what they've done. They need someone else to say it's good, which makes you really, really fragile. Wait for dad to say you played well. Well, dad, you've made your son very fragile now because he needs you to say it before he feels good about himself. That's wrong to me. And we need to let them know you got to be good. How do you feel about it? Good, good. Because I think you played great, but you got to feel good about that. That's been a big shift in my messaging to tease out their ability to have to gauge where they think they're at, rather than waiting for feedback always. And I'm good because teacher said I did good, or I'm not, coach said I didn't play well, so I didn't play well. What do you think? I don't care. Like, you're going to get feedback from people, but it doesn't mean they're right. And you got to understand it's your work. And we can help correct problems and fix things. But how do you feel about it? And come to your point early on, we never had coaches do that for us. They never asked, they just told. So we got used to being told if we're good or bad. And I don't want my kids growing up in a world where they're waiting for the world to tell them if they're any good or not. I want them to know they are, or know that they need improvement and work at it.
Well, and that's why I started this podcast, because I see the pressure and overwhelm that parents are under in the youth sports environment. And I think that most parents are like you, they're like me. They want to get a little bit better. They often just don't know how. And little tips like that, I've incorporated that into my game with my kid as well. Asking each of them, well, what are you proud of from your practice? What are you proud of
It's good.
from your game? Most of the time, almost every time, I've never even seen your practice unless I happen to be coaching your team. That's another tip. I
Yeah.
don't think parents should be at most practices as long as they know their kids are in safe environments. But just asking them what they're proud of and do it with a genuine curiosity as well, which brings up that post practice or post game discussion. I think the most natural thing, and you know this as well, most natural thing for parents, especially if they've played sports and like sports, is let's start talking about the game. Let's start talking about what I saw out there. And it's generally not the right time and it's generally not the right atmosphere or approach. What does post game with the Reeds, whether that's Coach Reid or Dad Angus Reid, look like?
My boys are kind of like the water boys on the team now too, so they're always at the game, and so they're cool. Like they want to talk about it more than I want to talk about it. I'm more than happy to just like let's go get burgers and milkshakes now and let's have some fun. And you know my response, even my mom will always call, "How did it go out there?" And, you know, she'll look at the score and it's easy to dissect it. I said, "Oh, they played really well. I'm really proud of them." You know, I'll watch the film later, but it was a good feel. They looked good out there. It looked like everyone was having a good time and it felt good. And I generally try to leave it at they look really good out there. And I'm really proud. I'm proud of them. I hope they're really proud of themselves. And then, well, you know, technology has changed the world. We talked about earlier. Kids haven't changed, but the noise and the inputs have changed, right? Everything else is that's magnified to levels that you and I couldn't possibly understand. So, you know, we have our Instagram chat group with the O line, and we'll talk about film there, and you know that could happen immediately, and I can share clips that night if I wanted to. Pretty much, I just share with the group some cool highlights, mostly their effort type plays right away. My first sharing is always high effort plays, just showcasing kids working really hard. Looks like they're trying really hard, and I rarely ever show something negative. We'll do that quietly, but we showcase a couple ones that I think are really good. Not always like you know, some sort of obscure domination, but just effort, high energy stuff to showcase. This is awesome. This is, you know, I don't show the ones that are touchdowns normally, just some random stuff they might not have noticed are big time things worth noting. And I'll send guys little notes after, let them know that I think they did well. What did they think? How did they feel? How did they feel out there? Love to hear their feedback. What we could do better. I try not to get right into it again. And that's the difference between amateur and pro sports. I don't want to be a pro coach. I have no interest. That's a different world. And you got to get right into breaking down film and reviewing and evaluating, get on the next team. And I don't want to do that. I want to enjoy this. I tell the kids all the time, you don't work football, you play it. Why do you play things? Because it's fun. This isn't a job. And I reminded coaches this all the time. And even I say it out to the players out loud in practice when they run out there. You know, hey, Jimmy, how much you getting paid today? What do you mean, coach? Nothing. Exactly. Why would I yell at you? Why? These kids are volunteering their time to put a helmet on where no one's going to know who they are, and only their moms show up at the games. What am I going to scream at them for from Monday to Friday? They're doing this voluntarily. You know, Scotty, if I scream at you every day, here's the difference too. You and me, when we grew up, that was the best outfit to be a cool kid to be a part of the team. Nowadays, half the guys that play in team sports, they get laughed at by their buddies anyways because their buddies are starting tech businesses and online. And what are you playing football for? And now I'm going to yell at you on top of that? We did it because that was cool. Now it's almost like, why are you wasting your time doing that? So they are going out of their way to do something that's very difficult. They're not getting paid. Nobody's really going to become a pro athlete. Even if they are, who cares? You still got to do something anyways. This is all for fun. It should be fun. And there's no better fun in the world though than becoming your best. But you got to tease that out of them. You got to make it so fun that they buy in first, and you got to believe in them so much that they trust you, and then you nudge, and then they want a little more, and then you can really coach them because you've layered that trust window that I'm here for the right reasons, and I care so much about you. Now let's go find out how good you can be. You can't start the other way by telling them they should be better and what's wrong with these guys. That was the old days when you had 100 kids wanting to play and we'd weed out the other 50. We're lucky if 25 kids show up anyways. So what am I going to scream at you for being here? No, I want you to keep showing up. My test always as a coach is, do you think this kid wants to show up tomorrow? Yeah. Then we did something right.
You were late to the party for football by conventional standards. You entered late. You obviously had a much longer career than most. You mentioned fun there. Was it ever not fun for you?
Oh, sure. Oh, I mean, sure. Like nothing's all fun. And well, I guess when you look back, it's what you define as fun. And I wrote this in the book. As a kid, you know, you kind of think easy is fun and difficulty is not fun. And then you start realizing that that's sort of the inverse because easy becomes boring and it becomes pretty lame. So I think with perspective, it was all fun. Certain parts were extraordinarily challenging, and you hit points where you didn't think you're going to make this through. And but now when you look back, those are probably the most fun times, right? Like, because it's like, wow, bigger obstacle to overcome, bigger challenge, bigger test, something worthy of my best. And I think that's interesting. You know what I want for my children? Something worthy of their best. I want them to do something that's worthy of their best, not an easy life. I don't want it to be easy thinking that's fun. I want them to choose something that will demand their very best. And they have to choose that because you're only going to bring your very best voluntarily. You'll bring enough non-voluntarily to get dad off your back. You'll bring enough non-voluntarily to get the bonus. You'll bring enough to tick the external box till someone shuts up. But once you choose your outlet, you can voluntarily bring your best. So choose one that will demand your best. And it's got to be something you want. So, what I'm proud of myself for in my career is I think I overplayed my abilities and I don't think I could have done much more. I look back and I don't have a lot of regrets go, well, if I worked a little bit harder, look, I was an overachiever by every metric. And I wasn't the guy that you would have said that that's the guy that's going to play all those years. So I feel pretty good that I don't look back going, man, I could have been better if I cared more. I think I brought everything I could, and I got challenged along the way. And to me, that makes a life that you look back going, you have content, And this is the problem with youth sports. One of the problems is, you know, our kids are 7, 8, 9, 10 years old, and we're putting them in unbelievable situations where they have to perform well because dad's telling you, we got a coach for you. What are you doing? We're in year-round clubs. You got to make this team. And they're trying to make sure dad's not gonna get mad at you or mom's not gonna be mad at you. And now it becomes about us being proud of you because you're doing all this stuff. The kid does might not even wanna do this. And who at 8 years old knows what they wanna do and who's ready to commit to year-round training? And they say you're gonna fall behind. Fall behind what? What are you falling behind in? Like, what are you really falling behind in? Well, progressing to the next level. The next level to where? I think this is very powerful. We didn't have to do this where we are in Vernon because we have very good. Again, we're high school football, so we're not a pro club or like a private club team where there's huge checks being cut. We're high school football by the traditional metrics. A couple $100, you pay your insurance, and you're on the team. Um, but I would suggest teams from other environments would do this with parents. I would do like a town hall before we started the year, and what does it mean to win a championship and win the final game or win what does it mean to be a champion? And let the parents sit there and scribble down all the attributes. Champion, they bring their best to everything they do. They could get them to feed it. Okay. So this is what we want for our kids. This one, right? Sure, this would be nice, but like not at the cost of this. Not this is at the end of the day, this is what we're using hockey or baseball. This is what we're using the sport for development process, right? Okay, so do we want this? Yes. Do we all agree? Do we see each other agree? Yes. Okay, so we're all gonna hold each other accountable for now. When we start crossing the line up, no, we're gonna pull you back to this. Remember what we're here to do. Remember, this is what you asked us to help mold with your children. And I'm gonna ask you the same thing at home. So we can be consistent with our messaging and our modeling, because this is what we want for our children, right? Right. We all saw each other say it. So when it goes sideways, we pull each other back. Remember what we agreed to. Remember. Be accountable for what you said you wanted, because you're gonna lose your head in the heat of the battle. And no, this is what we said we wanted. Because you said at the beginning, most parents start off with the right intentions and it gets all confused. I think you got to anchor down that definition of what are you trying to get out of this? And you keep it close and you look at it all the time. So when you're about to go off and do something that's just like, this seems crazy. Vet it against this. Is it feeding this, or is it feeding, the one answer on the other line that really isn't that big of a deal? What are we doing here? What are we doing here? Like, you know, I'd love to see our kids, the odd kid's going to make it pro once in a while. It's fantastic. It's fantastic. That's not the goal. It's never been the goal, nor should it be the goal. And so to have great experiences for kids does not require, honestly, Scott, that much. It doesn't require year-round intensive training with 15 different coaches that are specialists to make kids have a great experience that they can transfer to life. If anything, it's going to teach them that you need to have 15 specialists to make it in this world. And that's not true. And if anything, it means you can't do it on your own. If anything, it means you better have paid people to navigate every portion of your life if you want to have a chance. And that's wrong.
Well, this brings up a quote that I saw you post a little while ago that I wanted to bring up with you. And it's coaching football is just my chosen outlet. Helping raise better youth is my mission. On the heels of what you just said, what does better youth mean to you?
Kids that have the courage to believe in themselves enough to be vulnerable enough to risk doing what they want to do and being okay failing in front of friends and being okay going back every day going, I'm going to keep going. And I'm not doing this to beat you. I'm doing this to become a better person and to actually internalize the scoreboard, which is really hard for us to do. Right? I beat you, but did you become better? Did you cheat? And this is the other thing too, to stop using the scoreboard as a measurement if you're winning, because if that's the case, you'll lie, you'll cheat, you'll steal to win, because that's all that matters, right? To internalize going, am I becoming a better person? How do you navigate that? Those are harder conversations, to have the courage to say, this is who I want to become as an individual. And I'll coach football, do that because that's just what I know. But I tell people all the time, and this is interesting for sports coaches, please remember this. We're probably the last adults on the face of this earth that has a teenager's undivided attention for 2 hours. No cell phones in a football practice. Their girlfriends don't get it. Their parents don't get it at the dining table. There's always some sort of phone or app that's going to divide their attention. So we have 2 hours where they're going to listen to you because they're going to hit in the head with a football, or they're not going to get to play because they want to. You have a bit of leverage there, right? What are you doing with that 2 hours? What words are you choosing to say that they're actually listening to? Is it just a block, tackle, and catch? Or are you using this opportunity to teach them how to solve a problem, to communicate better, to walk through this with me, to hang in there long enough without getting frustrated, to say with it again, to get beat and be okay, because it wasn't about beating that person. It was about learning who you are so we can improve and adapt. So to me, better people is going into something without the panic of having to prove this that the world has told you means winner. Is to go, I just want to become a better person, and I'm going to use this to challenge myself, to bring my best, whatever that means. And I know that's murky, and that's life. You ask anybody, there's no cookie cutter answer to what's a good life. I come back to it though. Whatever, something worthy of bringing your best. What does that mean? You got to figure that out. Because Scotty, here's the most challenging question. I say this in my business talks. Was that your best? Well, but I got 100%. Didn't ask that. We won the championship. Didn't ask that. Is it your best? Well, you can kind of lie around things. Well, I got MVP. Bring your best. We lost the game. Did you bring your best? That's all that matters. How can you do more than that? But we got beat by 50 points. You brought your best though. There is nothing better than that in this world. But people need an external measurement to prove they're good. And only you bringing your best to whatever you're doing, you can keep working with that. But to remove the external scoreboard, we like it. It's fair. We don't try to lose games. Of course, we're going to try to win. But at the end of the day, you're rewarding them when they know that they've brought their best, and you have a conversation with them and that's why you're proud of them. And we're going to get it tomorrow. We're going to do it again, because that's what life is. And we're both going to bring our best tomorrow. And what's really cool about coaching for me is, and because I have young boys, I have to model it too. Like, these kids want to come over to my house and work out now. So I got to keep going. I'm an old man, but I got to keep going because they expect it of me. So it keeps me like, I can't be that lazy old bum that's yelling at them, telling them what I used to be able to do. Not that I got to do all that again, but I want to model what bringing my best means, whatever that is in your phase of life. So I can't ask of them something I'm not willing to do myself. And I'm not going to cuss and yell at them and tell them they're not allowed to cuss and yell. Like, all that stuff's nonsense. Like, you got to live to the same standard you expect them to be. And then it's normal. Of course. And you know what's really cool? My boys at home, I got a garage gym, and these teenage boys on the team, they want to come over and lift before school at 6:30 in the morning. So I got my boys. They see it and they look up to these teenagers, because I'm just their dad. I'm not cool, right? But these teenagers are their heroes. And these teenagers come over and pick them up and, sign autographs for them. And then they see them get up and work out every morning at my house before school. So my boys think, one, that's cool. And two, that's normal. So I don't have to say, guys, you should be working out. Why wouldn't they? They don't know anything different. Are we creating environments of standards of existing that are just normal? There's no pressure. I don't have to say anything. It's just how we do things. It's what we do here. There's no demanding. I do it. You do it. We do it. We just live at a level that's really acceptable. And it's kind of neat. I think it's really fun. And what's really cool is, I didn't outsource it to pay someone to take my kid for an hour to make them work hard. We just do that. That's what we do here. And people come over and we have a lot of fun and we laugh and we bond. And my kids get to have their heroes that are teenagers, and those teenagers probably look up to me. And that's the circle of life, right? We work hard and do something so we have some credibility. I say this all the time. It's what you do after you've gained a platform that's impressive or not. Everyone does what they got to do to make it, whatever that means. Now you're somebody. What are you doing with that? Are you helping to inspire and navigate the next group to show they can do it too? And so they can now learn. That's what I do to the 7 and 8-year-olds now too. Inspire you. Nobody thinks you're better than anybody, because we all had someone inspire and help us. So do that for them. So they learn to do that for them. So these teenagers now know right away, you be good to the kids because I was good to you. You be good to them. That's the responsibility of becoming somebody that I think is, a high agency person, somebody that's worth looking up to, that they're going to take what they've done and use that to help the next group realize you can do this too. And I'm here to help. Let's do it.
We talked earlier about a lot of the ways that this youth sports environment is different now than when we were growing up. And with the sport we've primarily talked about, it's very different, especially for parents now. And I didn't bring you on here to make this an ultimatum on football, but parents have to make the best choices that they believe are there for their kids. And football being a collision sport and being a sport where there are injuries and in some cases, tough injuries. And with the talk about CTE and where we're at with brain trauma. There's a lot of noise around football and has been for a number of years. When a parent comes to you and is on the fence because of safety concerns, why do you still advocate for football?
Okay, I might get in trouble. I have some football people here, but I'll just tell you my honest answer to parents. I wouldn't play till high school. So I coach flag football. Your boy's going to play tackle this year? No, he's 8 years old. He doesn't. And I'll give you a couple reasons why. The obvious. I don't need to add collisions to an undeveloped body, but to me, the coaching might not be the best. Bad habits get formed. If you the body sizes are all over the place. You get a really developed 10-year-old, undeveloped seven. A couple things are going to happen. One kid's going to hit the kid crazy hard, but this little kid's going to learn to be defensive now when he takes a hit for the rest of his life. That's not the right place to be, but you got to undo that later. You get bad habits formed, injury. So I wouldn't play till high school. It's a sport you don't need a ton of volume on. It's probably, I hope you'd agree with me, it's probably the easiest sport to teach outside of being a quarterback. If you're athletic, tough, and don't mind contact, on the defensive side, I can teach football pretty quick. If you got good instincts, so like you want to get tough and strong. I wish wrestling was still a bigger sport, but you get kids going. Even rugby's probably a better intro, but you can jump into football pretty late, unless you're probably a quarterback. Most of the other ones, good athlete, good instincts, and you'll be fresher if you don't play your whole life. I played with guys pro that triple knee surgeries by the time of 16. They're destroyed, right? I don't think you need to.
Well, and just to jump in here, I think with what you mentioned with flag football, you can get so much skill development without contact prior to entering the world of contact football. I didn't ask you to say any of this. I'm on the same page as you with respect to high school football, but I will let you continue.
And so I'll backpedal a moment to the one issue, that the one worry that I have, but moving along, I'll come back to that. Is football was always a contact sport. Then it became a collision sport. And I think that happened in the 90s. I think that happened when neck rolls and pads became bigger. And I think it was similar to hockey, where they said the answer to injuries is bigger equipment to be safe. And you and I know what happened. They got weaponized. So instead of fitting people with your hands and hips and feet, we just started launching ourselves into people. And that got rewarded and that got praised. And so the neck rolls got bigger and bigger, and they stopped coaching football. They just started coaching full speed collisions, right? And then the whole thing unraveled. I was like, this is a mess. So I'll say for the first part, most of my practices in the off season, guys, we don't put on equipment because we block with our hands, our hips, our feet. And I try to normalize that. I try to have the helmet off most of the practices we can. Guess what? They keep their head out of it. I do that long enough. They put it on the game. They've changed how they do it. So another part of youth sports, you little guy football, they just end up hitting each other, and not right. So I think football's ideally getting coached better now again. I think we had to. But it's the same conversation I had with my nephew at University of Calgary. We're talking about like the Guardian caps. I said, this is gonna make it better. He goes, it's just another false sense of security. Now you think you're safe again. You got to coach it better, and we got to keep coaching it better. There's a way to tackle and there's a way to block, and neither of those have ever been put your helmet on his helmet and smash them. You and I know that. You hit someone with a helmet, you get kicked out of a game. I used to say this to parents all the time. This helmet's no different than a seatbelt. You put a seatbelt on, not so you can drive into walls. It's a just in case thing. It's a safety mechanism. It was never part of what you're supposed to hit with. Collisions were hands, hips, and feet. So we got to get back to coaching it better. And I think across the board. So to me, who's the coach? And I used to think that was the answer, but then who's coaching the other team? But I think we're getting better. I think we need a lot more coaching on the game, because I think for the most part, there's going to be potential of injuries everywhere, but you can dial back reckless football by better coaching. And I think that took about 20-year window from that 90s where it got really glamorized to just knock out punch guys. That wasn't how you tackled. That was just how you launched yourself, because you had neck roll up to here. And we've sort of dialed that back again. Same as hockey, right? It wasn't as much injuries until they started putting the heavier shoulder pads on. They started using them. Why not? It's not it. So, but I'll give you my one concern about football. You said about flag. Here's the big trouble I see is the bigger kids, the linemen. They've always kind of been the marginalized kids, right? They're kind of They might be the kids that were teased when they were younger, they're kinda bigger, kinda over and now the video game world has allowed them to sort of just sort of, like, hide at home and hang out, and what is the outlet for them, that kinda bigger kid? Like, I wish wrestling was still a big, big thing. I wish what can they be physical with that doesn't involve a collision for those younger years that they would do, that they could get praised for, not laughed at, where they fit? And I'm sure there's answers out there, but those are the guys I worry about because a great athlete will have opportunities in every single sport. That kid that's fast and can run, but that bigger kind of kid, that lineman world is a place where they could become a star maybe for the first time in their life, and they could be a real somebody. So that kind of kid, I'm always trying to find. How do we find something for them to build pride and confidence when they're younger, so they don't become that lost kid that never leaves the house and they put on more weight because they just sit at home and play video games and do nothing. Because linemen has always been that great outlet where they could be a somebody, and they're very important. There's not a lot of sports that are going. We need that. We need more of that kid, right? The other kids, the receivers, running backs, they can spend their whole life playing basketball, track, and football, and soccer, and join football later. They jump into anything. But the bigger kid is the one I do worry about. That's that big kind of over kid that maybe has insecurity and they just stay at home now. Maybe they never leave the house anymore. By 10th, 11th grade, it's hard to get them to come out now. They've never done anything. That's the one I worry about.
It's a fair concern, and I do think at its best, football, like rugby, is one of the most inclusive sports out there
Yes,
because you need all body types
every body
to be
size.
successful, and every body type has value,
Yeah.
and that is something with self-image and self-worth that kids struggle with naturally, and they can get that confidence from football, especially if they get the right guidance from a coach. I do wanna ask you this, and I know you hold coaches to a very high standard. How do parents know if their kids are getting good coaching?
Ah, wish I had an easy answer for you. It's interesting because I'm entering that world now with hockey. I don't know anything about hockey. I can't even skate. So my boys going to hockey, I think they're with really good coaches. Like I see them and they good people. I've gotten to know them, so they're good people. They seem to really know what they're doing. So I trust a little bit. The feedback is these are really good guys. So I have to trust on some level. But the other sports, I've guess I've been privileged enough, sort of I can know pretty quick. But that's a really good point. How do parents know who to trust, and or how do they know? And that becomes a really dangerous question when they're actually charging you because they become better sales guys too. I wish I had a better answer for you where it's like, well, this is what you do. I think your best bet is to ask around to various parents looking for various responses, the good and the bad of it all. And you got to weigh, like, don't just look to the best player because they've probably been treated really well. And I honestly, Scott, I don't know, and I'm starting to learn that now because I'm finding myself in a world that I'm not familiar with. Basketball I grew up with, I pretty much know. Football I know pretty well, and this hockey world, it's interesting for me because I feel like a fish out of water. Like I know sports, I know coaching in general, but I don't. I mean, I know how you interact with a kid, but I don't know the actual hockey things you're telling them. So I don't know, and that's where I think you're right with football. It's one of the ones that the default is just stay away unless you can prove that it's worthy, and that's tough, and I get it. I'm not discounting the concerns. But to your point, I I still believe football is, one of the greatest outlets that are inclusive to the fact that, 1, you probably don't ever have to cut a kid. Probably. If you do, that's an incredible situation that program's in, and if a coach really wants to, they can make every single kid feel important. Even if they are the all-star practice roster player, practice rep guy, and you acknowledge them every day, and the peers acknowledge them, you can make everybody feel they're part of a tribe that's got their back in the hallways. And here's the other thing about high school sports, and football particularly, you have automatically now 20, 30, 40 friends in the hallways where some kids never make a friend in high school anymore. We're on the same team now. We're good. We're good. That's that's pretty good security blanket through your days in the school room. But to your question, I don't know. I'm navigating that myself right now. I don't have a good answer for you.
Well, I can tell you at the youngest levels, my own personal approach, and this won't wash with everybody, but I look for obviously, I want my kids in a safe environment. Once I've established that and that trust is there, if that coach can instill enough love and fun for my kid to want to come back the next year, I figure they're doing a pretty good job. The technical stuff, the skill stuff, we can work on that at any point. But if you stick with it long enough and you have that love, you'll come back. And good coaches do that. I've talked about teenager. We've talked about teenager a lot, your most recent book. I do want to end in this because you do coach, you put your heart and soul into it, And your first book was called Thank You, Coach. You mentioned earlier a coach in high school, it's one of the only places you can get undivided attention from a
Yeah.
teenager for 2 hours. What impact do you believe coaches can have, not on somebody's sport, but on somebody's life?
Unlimited. Unlimited, and I don't think, the easy conversation on that is if the child doesn't have a strong, foundation at home, they can be that strong foundation, but the opposite's too. I came from a very good family, but coaches were incredibly influential to me every step of the way because it was in a specific niche where they showed me I could do something that I didn't know I could do that mattered in a performance world, and to your point, I think all we're trying to do here is is help kids become something they didn't think they could do or they could become. And the second you show that, then you challenge them to do a little more and a little more. And the nice thing about sports is, although the scoreboard doesn't matter, it's tangible feedback. So you actually, football, I'll keep using an example, a lineman makes that block. And what's really cool in today's world is we have video of it. So like, I'm not playing very well. Yes, you are. Look at this. Look at what you're doing. And then I'll show old film from 3 weeks ago. You couldn't do this 3 weeks ago. And you see their body language like, wow, you're right. I'm like, yeah, that's incredible. Like, that is incredible. And there was something I learned from Coach Dan. I think I put it in Thank You, Coach, but I challenge coaches on this too, particularly in football, probably hockey. I mean, kind of the old school tough sports. Generally, when practice would stop or they blow the whistle in the middle after play, they're going to start yelling and screaming because somebody screwed up. Right? It's noise and emotion, and when you bring it, it's because there's a problem. So Dan taught me this. It's at the pro level. He would blow the whistle after a play and go bananas because we did something good. And he would stop everything. "Oh, stop it all. Hanks, you see where you put your foot and your hand right there? That is outstanding." And I'm just like, you're so conditioned to turtle into because you're about to get scolded. And we would blow up the good. And then we'd stop and of course correct the bad. And once in a while you yell about it, but you overwhelm them too with the reinforcement when they did something great. And so they're excited to hear from you. They're excited to be coached by you. They want to hear more from you. So of course there's going to be corrections and feedback and all stuff too, but they want to hear from you. If only you get yelled at, nobody wants to hear from their coach. They're going to yell at me again. And so I like your point too about how you have a good coach. Does your kids want to go back to practice? And you know, do they like to be coached by you? And that's kind of a vague answer, but one of the greatest joys, one of the greatest honors I get is if I hear from parents that I haven't met, and kids like, oh, my boy just loves being coached by you or can't stop talking. And I'm just like, you don't have to say it to me and thank you. I've never met the parents, so they're not trying to get anything out of me. It's like I must be doing something right. And I don't have all the answers and we screw up all the time. But if the kid enjoys being coached by me, then I'm winning. Then I'm winning. And that's all that matters. Like you said, technically, too many guys go through all these. I think we need more coaching clinics on how to coach, less coaching clinics on the West Coast offense. And this is how you run spread formation. Who cares? Just go on YouTube and watch that stuff. Like that's easy. How do you get kids to know that you actually care about them? How are you connecting with them? What are you doing intentionally every day that's authentic? That's not fake. That's not phony. That they know you are actually here for them. They're not being used by you. How are you doing that? And how are you doing it in a way that's not phony and fake? And I think we need to share more of those things because you and I know that's all that matters. It's the experience they had. And the experience is, I love being coached by you. And you know what, Scott, you know what I know this. If they love being coached by you, you can start coaching harder too. You can challenge more because they know it's all coming from the place that I'm just here for you. I just want to help you be great. I can't wait to celebrate you being your very, very best.
Very well said, Angus, as was this entire conversation. Once again, the book is Teenager, a story about finding your way. I recommend it. Use it as a way to give your kids an outlet, but also as a way for you to have a little bit more understanding for what they're going through. Angus, thank you very much for doing this. I really appreciate the opportunity to reconnect.
Pleasure, man. Good to see you, Scott. It's been too long.
I hope you enjoyed this episode and you found some tangible takeaways that you can bring with you in your journey to becoming a better sports parent. The best way for you to support this podcast is for you to subscribe, follow, rate, review, and drop us a comment on whichever platform you're watching or listening. And the fastest way for us to grow this podcast and reach more parents out there is for you to share it with your respective networks and to tell people that you see at your youth sporting events when you're there with your children. Big thanks to Lightstock Music and Andre Diaconou for the music on this podcast, which is a production of Toolkit Content. Until next time, happy sports parenting. And remember, have fun out there. That's what it's supposed to be about.